friends, I am Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Also a werewolf, apparently. But I think it's appropriate because this is RPGaDay 2022, and the question that I have in the 27th day is, how has my character changed? And because it's not fair to answer that question, considering that I haven't had any time to play the current character that I have, Onkilius the Shaker, from the game Colossal, it really won't do it a lot of justice. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to relate how my character changed for the last character that I played, Corbrecht Silverflume, the Dwarven Wizard that I played in the Tyranny of Dragons campaign. However, I am not going to do it through this mask because that would be, well, I probably don't sound the greatest. It might be okay, but we're going to treat this mask more like a hood for the time being. So, Corbrecht started out at about 3rd level with the group as a wizard. I played for a little bit as a barbarian first. My first character was Galahad, who was a Goliath barbarian, and that was fun. However, I realized that in the campaign that I was playing, it was shaping up to be a decent length campaign. We eventually got up to, I believe, 11th or 12th level. And I really wanted, I knew I didn't have many chances to play, especially in a campaign. So what I did was, I switched to Corbrecht Cinderflume, a wizard, because my first love is wizards. I love playing wizards in role-playing games. I just love having the resources and getting to tinker with magic and poking around and finding the best uses of my spells. And then being able to play, whatever role interests me within the group, within the confines of that class. And I've yet to find a game where wizards are really shoehorned and flat. In this case, I was playing as an abjurer. So I was able to use all kinds of fun defensive magics and let the other party, really do well while I worked to protect everybody, because that was his role. He was a defender. Corbrecht started out as a young, idealistic wizard, very defensive-minded, who was not the first person to throw fireballs and stuff. He was the person who could counterspell away some people's problems, but also he was very, very intelligent. And a little foolhardy. He sometimes acted without thinking, but his brains usually got him out of trouble. And through the game, and this is through the Tyranny of Dragons settings, and he started off just after the attack on Phandalin. And after that, the characters kind of became known as the Heroes of Phandalin. Corbrecht showed up after that. He participated in the battle, but he didn't get as much recognition as the rest of the party did. So, from that point on, he became a member of the group and started proving his usefulness with his magics very quickly. Because, again, I love playing wizards. And I'm pretty clever on the right time to use the right spells, especially when I was mostly using them to enhance my allies and occasionally get rid of nuisances, but a lot of it was spent in controlling the battlefield and making sure my allies didn't get compromised too badly. And it seemed to work out really well. The balance of the group worked out. As we started playing, though, I really started to get into my character, and he changed his direction a couple of times. His first point was that he was a master brewer, or was working to being a master brewer, and a master alchemist, and he wanted to combine his two loves. So he eventually wanted to make magical alcohols, which he would end up doing. That was his first thing. Then after that, he took to becoming a good guild member, and then worked as a tireless advocate of our guild, the Grand Order, to try to make us one of the premier adventuring guilds throughout the Sword Coast. Which, again, we were pretty successful on that as well. Other changes that he went through involved sometimes being the diplomat of the group, the resource they all learned to draw from as far as knowledge, lore, history. He was really good at that, and eventually, got a lot of respect from people for being a kind of a cool head, because as a dwarf he took the long view on things. He wasn't prone to rash action and immediately advocating, charging in and destroying the enemies. That really wasn't his thing. So the rest of the group had enough gumption that they wanted to do more active things. My character wanted to sit back, spend a little time brewing, tinker with a few things, and then come back with a really good plan that would be really effective. Which is a complete opposite from my first character, Galhard, who I did flirt with and play back a few times, who just loved getting in the mix of things and just throwing himself at the enemy and just, he had some peculiarities to him that made him interesting to play, including his vow of picking up the weapon from the enemy that he beat, taking his weapon and using it to beat the next enemy, which left him with some strange weaponry indeed. But by and large, Corbrecht basically grew from being a young dwarf into a solid guild member who could be counted on as kind of a rock the group could form around, that would use his magics to keep the battlefield fair, not overshadow his allies, and he did get cocky, don't get me wrong. He had his pride and he had his dignity, and he had a bit of pride, so he sassed off to people sometimes, but he picked his spots sometimes. Occasionally he sassed off to the wrong person, but for the most part, it was really fun to grow into that character, and of course, it helps when you have your own voice and talk like your character and help to get into the character. And when you're doing that, you'll find that you're starting to naturally think the way the character does. And if the character is steadfast and has the perspective of the dwarven people behind him, you'll find you'll do fewer silly things. Occasionally, maybe you might do some mad scientisty things, but you'll rarely do the things that'll get your head taken off. And that was a lot of fun. He still remains one of my favorite characters, despite the fact he was not, by a long stretch, a character that I played the longest with. But I felt more into that character than I did even my very first character that I ever played, which was a human lawful good cleric, because the group needed a cleric, and they wanted somebody they could trust. So that's how Corbrecht changed and grew, basically filling into the role the world cast him into. That storyline involves a lot of adversity. Eventually your characters are taking on fully grown dragons on a fairly regular basis. That's not something that generally gets done lightly. In that game, it almost seemed like it was too lightly done, that we were constantly facing dragons, but we survived for the most part, and that was a fun character to play. So, hopefully this gave you some clue as to how the characters evolve and grow with the players that play them. Not just a matter of ticking up numbers either. It's definitely also a matter of learning your character's perspective and being able to tap into that perspective to guide your character on where they'll go next. Not always for the best. Not always for the best at all. But always an interesting journey for the player who cares about the world and the characters. So much better than just ticking up numbers. So, until next time, my friends, thank you for joining me. I am Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. If you yourself have any ideas and feelings on your own character's journeys, or how you grew closer to your character, and understanding your character's motivations and everything, feel free to leave a comment below, or go to my Dungeon Tutor Facebook group and leave a comment to start a conversation, or perhaps even spark a video of mine. So until further times, my friends, videos are still coming. There's still a few more days left in August. So until the next video, farewell.